Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and notification button. If you're not new, thank you for joining me again. My dog also says hi. My puggies are on a pug squishmallow. Today we have a little sit down video because this last week has been really rough. There was with my eating disorder, a very traumatic event that happened that led to a lot of stuff happening. So I kind of wanted to be honest and open about it because I feel like that's so important for all those that are struggling, especially those that are the thousands that are struggling in silence. And so I just really feel like I need to share what's going on. So get some popcorn, get some tea, some coffee, because we gonna get into it. So a week ago, I woke up and went to work, and I knew within 20 minutes of being at work that I had, this may be TMI, but I knew I had a bladder infection. I've had UTIs before. I was 99% certain it was it. Like, I knew. Obviously, I couldn't be 100% for sure because I didn't have a test, but I've had plenty of them. I knew what it felt like. Had the most miserable shift I've ever had because I was literally in the bathroom 99% of my shift, crying in pain. Ended up leaving, and my husband drove me to urgent care. And I haven't been to urgent care in a long time, like long time, since like I think it was 4 years ago when I got my first tattoo, and it got infected. But I knew I couldn't survive the weekend without going and getting help and getting some medication. So I did. I made the decision I was gonna go. And when the nurse called me back, the first thing was getting vitals. And one of those is the scale. That was the first thing she did because she did the blood pressure and oxygen reading in the room. We went straight to a scale. And at first I was like, sorry, I can't get weighed. Like, I have an eating disorder. I just can't get weighed. My dietitian is the only one that weighs me. But I figured they would need my weight to be able to prescribe me medicine because of, like the dosage, knowing like my weight so they can kind of gauge on how much they need to prescribe me. So I was like, whatever, I'll weigh myself backwards. No harm, no foul, whatever. We'll step on backwards, won't look at it, be done. We went into the room. They did my blood pressure. The nurse questioned me, all those typical questions. I mentioned twice I had anorexia, and she even reverberated it to me that I had anorexia. Okay. The doctor comes in while I'm in the bathroom, and she told Blake, my husband, that she'll be back once I'm done. And then she comes in like 4 minutes after I get back from the bathroom, talks to me for like 3 minutes, lets me know like I have a UTI and will prescribe medicine and also another medicine to help like kickstart that antibiotic and make me more comfortable. Okay, cool. She goes to print off some papers. She's like, oh, here's, I sent the prescription digitally to the pharmacy you wanted, but here's some paperwork about your medications. Like, here's she made it seem just some, like, she's like, oh, here's your medicine paperwork. So I just thought, oh, I had listen medicines and whatnot. But it was my visit summary. And I opened it, and the first thing right there I'm sorry, was my weight. And when I tell you, my heart, my heart and stomach just dropped from my body. Like, I felt my whole world just shatter in that moment. I'm sorry. It's been a week, and it's actually been more than a week now. And it's still, sorry. I folded the paper real quick, tried to give it to my husband, but he was like, the doctor was still saying some stuff, couldn't understand what she was saying, couldn't hear her, was totally spaced out. All I could think about was that number. But he was like, that's not my papers, I don't need them, so he didn't take them from me. And he just, we walked out together, and I started cried the whole car ride home. And my husband first thought it was just because I was in pain. He kept apologizing, holding my hand, rubbing my hand. Went home to take a shower because I had just come straight from work to the urgent care. Was in the shower for legitimately a half hour, just staring at the wall. Could not process any of that. Could not think. All I did was stare at the wall under the hot water, crying. That's all. Just blank. Just crying. Staring at this tiled wall. My husband goes to leave to get my meds, and of course he wants to say goodbye to me. And he comes in and he hears me crying, and he's like, honey, what's wrong? Like, at this point, he knows it's not just pain. And I said, the paper they gave me had my weight on it. And his face just drops. Like, you could tell, he's like, oh, fudge, no. I hadn't known my weight for over a year. I don't want to me, that number does not define me. It's not important. I didn't need to know it as long as my doctor and my dietitian and my treatment team knows it and it's a good number for them and they're happy with it. That's all that matters to me. I didn't know it for over a year. My husband was like, oh, fudge. He gently grabs and rubs my hand and tries to talk me and calm me down. Leaves to get my medication. And he ends up throwing the paper away. And I ended up, while he was getting my meds, I ended up calling my dietitian, bawling my eyes out. And she ends up, 10 minutes later, once the appointment she was in ends, calls me back. And I let her know, like, what's going on. And I literally had a 15-minute conversation phone call in between her appointments with my dietitian, just trying to process what had happened. And then I ended up emailing my therapist. And some people are like, oh, it's just a number. Big deal. Stop being a wussy. You don't realize how traumatic seeing that number is for people who have a literal illness that has almost killed them. Because of their weight and their body image. That number has determined a lot in my life and has controlled my life for so many years. That number determined my worth, my value, my happiness. And seeing that number where it is just destroyed me. It was like someone just smashed. I was looking in this mirror, just living. I was just like on cloud 9 living my best life. And someone just came and just smash that illusion. Like it was like looking through an illusion, like a glass, like a mirror. Just living in this delusional world of happiness, and someone just came and just smashed that mirror. And now, like, making food decisions because I know that number has been harder. There's a lot more self-talk that has to happen to fight against those thoughts that are a lot more potent now. Trigger warning. Should have said at the beginning of the video. My bad. Sorry. There's a lot of thoughts that are now going in my head with things that were getting quite easy and quite comfortable. Like, the amount of food I was eating felt okay, felt comfortable. I was throwing away clothing that wasn't feeling right. I was truly living my best life. And now going in the kitchen and deciding what to make my husband and I for dinner is... It's one of... Going into the kitchen is like a battlefield. And, like, making those decisions of, okay, like, well, what do I want for snack? Well, I know what I want for snack. But what I want for snack ain't what my eating disorder wants for snack. And going against that eating disorder voice is so much harder knowing that number. And some people are like, oh, well, it's just a number. But for me, that determined, and for a lot of people that have eating disorders, that number determined so much of your life. It determined if you were loved, if your value, your worth. For me, it determined how much exercise I had to do today. If the day was even a good or bad day, depending on what I saw when I stepped on that scale. Like, I ended up going to the dietitian 2 days later, and we sat for over an hour and just processed. I had to make a pros and cons list of what being at that number, a pros and cons list of being at the number I'm at. And kind of objectively, which is hard, objectively looking at what being at that number truly means, and looking at, is it really what I think it is? Like, all these thoughts start going through my head, like, oh my gosh, I need to do X, Y, and Z, or like, it gets to the point where you just feel shameful to look at. Like, I just felt so, like, knowing that number, thankful for dietitians and treatment teams. But at first, when I first learned that number, I felt so disgusted. Like, I just felt like I could puke right then and there. Like, I felt so disturbed with myself. I felt so embarrassed. I didn't even want my husband to touch me. Like, I felt so disgusted and just ashamed to be looked at. I just felt mortified, and it has taken a lot over the last week to really retrain my brain to get back to where it was before seeing that number. And it still is going to take work. And it does sort of seem like a step back. But as my dietitian pointed out, like, I was eventually going to have to see that number. Like, yes, it wasn't when I was planning on seeing it and wasn't prepared to see it. But eventually in life, with just how our society is, I eventually probably was going to end up seeing it sooner or later. And now, at least I have the team and the support system to truly process it and able to continue to do what I'm doing. And it's been taking work to get back to where I was before seeing that number. But with my treatment team and my support system and the coping mechanisms I have learned throughout treatment, I have been able to slowly get back there day by day, instead of going backwards, because seeing that number could have been a very slippery slope to going backwards and going into old behaviors and going right back to the place where I would need treatment. And I am lucky to say that because of all the safeguards I had put in place for situations like this, I have been able to not do that, and I feel very confident in saying truthfully that I handled it way differently than I would have in the past before residential treatment, and am on a real trajectory to get back to where I was before seeing that number and not letting it deteriorate me. Yes, there have been a few moments where things have gotten a little slippery over the past week, but I have done, with the precautions I had put in place, things have truly gone a lot better than what they could have, and I am still doing quite well, and I'm very, very proud to say that I am still fighting the fight, and I'm still truly kicking my eating disorder's butt. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. If you're dealing with disordered eating or eating disorders, please know you are not alone. Reach out, and you are loved, and you are brave. Thank you all.